421. And let me just check comments for YouTube, etc., etc. What we've got now, I need to clarify also, because I think I said in one of the streams before that checking hex.vision one page is the same as checking another page, which wasn't 100% correct, because what I should have said, excuse me, to add context, is this particular screen here allows you to see in real time as stakes are ending. I don't know if you guys remember a website, I can't remember the name of it now, and every time a stake would start, end, or anything otherwise, you'd see a coin drop down from the sky like a little slot machine. It was very cool. I'm not sure if that is still around, but basically looking at this screen here, hex.vision, you can see excuse me, someone very recently, relative to the time now, ended a stake, potentially. I'm guessing it does, because that's pretty much all it shows, as well as penalties and things like that. You can have a look in here, pull up their stakes, and most recently it was a smaller account. They were down a little bit. Current value, total, let's have a look at that in hex terms. Okay, so we've got the doggies barking right on cue. It will pass. But so this here, we can see it's a smaller stake. So that's just, I thought I'd point that out. If you're interested, if you go through hex.vision, again, it shows you the amount of stakes ending in one day. So today, if you filter it correctly, or however you want to filter it, it is, let's have a look. See, I filtered it 22nd to 23rd, so it's different again, because last time I just filtered it and it showed like one day. And then it had the previous day, and then the previous day, etc., etc., etc. This time it's actually broken down into a time frame from, you know, time A to time B, and it breaks down, you know, there was a few here, the one here, you know, when the stakes are ending. So you can see in real time, unlike a lot of other, I don't know what you call them, decentralized tokens out there. You can, but it's probably a little bit harder. But here's the hard part. This is what I'm trying to figure out. If anyone can help me, if anyone knows. Now, we've seen a slight pause. So for the first time, I've checked Go Pulse, and it hasn't gone up another 20%. So my question is, what happens from here? My question is, where does it go and why? So also, Hedron today from StakeHex, get back here, is also Hedron.today, bid on HSI auctions. So that is another whole ecosphere that is worth having a look around in if you have larger amounts of Hedron and Acosa. Hedron and Acosa haven't been cancelled off of the quote-unquote Uniswap decentralized fucking DEX, excuse my language, but HEX, its parent, has, for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. Now this is my next thing I'm going to look at. So looking HEX stakes, when they end, how much they end, what the account is doing. You can, if you want. Again, apologies to whoever that was. I'm not picking on you or anything like that. I'm just purely on-chain data. It's clear and open for the world to see. Now, again, we can see it's unlikely that if we go into Etherscan, I should have put that up earlier. We could have a look at the particular address. And we can see here the total holdings. It's unlikely that this account is going to dump, say, $1 million worth of HEX onto any liquidity pool. So what story can we tell from that? Well, that kind of helps us, because it's like, okay, who is driving down the price and why and how? Again, it's not positive or negative, it's just facts. Now, the thing I'm interested in is which LP is causing this, because I had a, I was thinking before, like literally just before I was watching Hex Fire stream. Shout out to Hex Fire, Crispy Man. Go and follow him if you're not already. So if you have a look in these LPs, now I haven't looked at the toggling between the two. I'm assuming it's Pulse Chain Ethereum on Hex Fire, but I'll have a look at that later. But if you look here, right, I'm going, okay, so it was what, 0.9 in this particular LP. So this is on Uniswap. I can remember a lot of people don't have access to this anymore. Myself included. Randomly, it actually just dropped out. I'm not sure why. Now we see the LP, and what is it doing? We're seeing 0.09, 0.09, then it starts to drop. And it's dropping on extremely small cells. Now we did see some LP removed, but we can see here, you know, it's not one individual who's doing the damage that you can see on chain. Like, it's not one line here that we're looking at one time that's caused the price to just sharply drop. It's sort of a consortium, a group. It's a set of, you know, cells. It's larger than the buyers. We can see here it was 0.0094. There was a small sell, and see, because the price is so low in this LP, $173, $200 will move it down a little bit from, you know, from 91 to 90. You know, a small sell will then move it down a bit more, etc., etc. Then a couple more cells. Next thing you know, you're at 0.0084. We can see the small amounts of buys and sells relative to total price in LP pool. There would have to be, like I said, imagine a sweet spot, and that sweet spot would allow you to calculate, you know, how much, if someone was to sell all their bag, what would the price do? And anyway, in between that, now I'm surprised that hasn't been done. It's probably not the easiest thing to do, mind you. But so the next thing is that, so keep that in mind. So we've got stakes ending. We can track the amount, where it's going, what it's doing. You could go in as far, if you wanted to actually go and eyeball the actual ADDI, and you could see maybe, you know, rapid relay tokens. So someone maybe, just maybe, they're in a stake, and most likely they're sending it across the bridge. Actually, I haven't checked on chain what that looks like. I'm guessing that's the bridge, maybe not. Bridge somewhere. And it'd be interesting if you could toggle between Etherscan, like straight into. Anyway, that's another thought. Now, so then you can see that you can go eyeball the actual wallet. You can then check on the Ethereum only, mind you, what it's doing. It would be awesome to see this on Pulse chain as well, like a toggle switch. Prices are basically stalled out just at this point in time. I don't know why. I'm trying to look at that now. There's Hedron dot today, but won't look at that today. And now if you were moving your EHEX, and I'm starting to really think all the dexes can go away, especially ones that, you know, start charging more fees. I think there was a tweet recently, basically fees have been turned on for Uniswap. So on top of, you know, disabling tokens, on top of, you know, treating people like babies and telling you what you can and can't play with, they're now turning fees on. Now, then I looked around, and a lot of other dexes, yes, they're okay, but again, they're on Ethereum, and you're going to be eating the ETH fees, which kind of suck. Pulse Chain, on the other hand, has lower fees. So you can bridge your Ethereum token if you're not going to stake it, if you're not going to sell it. Even if you are going to sell it, hear me out. If you did want to sell it, now I'm not sure how this is going to work because I'm literally thinking it through live. But if you had Ethereum Hex, for example, and you weren't, you know, staking it for longer, chasing more T shares, say you were going to, you plan on selling it, you know, maybe you're scraping the interest or whatever, that's fine. But remember, if you just remember though, if you go in and say you could, you most likely you can't, on a decentralized exchange, maybe not Uniswap, and you want to market sell X amount. So say this individual was going to market sell $50 worth of HEX, right? So $50 worth of HEX on Uniswap version 3, if you could, into USDC for argument's sake. What would it do to the price? We can see here it might push it down ever so slightly. But given the size of the liquidity pools, the actions, the amount of trades taking place, it's not really doing much, that small amount. Remembering fees suck. So the next thing that I was thinking of, say you wanted to sell your amount. Gas fees on ETH are kind of low at the moment, so it might be an okay idea if you were to go onto the bridge, remove your HEX from like EHEX, that is, if you're not staking, and that's a big if, and that's if you don't want to do whatever you want over there. But if you think about it, you bring over your Ethereum HEX, right? You're chasing T-shares. Now I'm pretty sure, I can't remember who it was, T-share maximizer. If you have a look at ID's group, shout out to ID, give him a follow. They've gone through this in depth. Now, basically, think about two independent chains, Ethereum and Pulse chain, and you're wanting to chase, wherever the T-shares treat you best, not just where it's the cheapest to operate. Because, imagine if everyone migrated over to Pulse chain, all of a sudden you'd see, and if there was LP left, you'd see some really, really cheap Ethereum, with basically no LP pools. And you could buy it up real cheap. And then you could, have a look at what the T-shares are doing, where it might treat you best, where you might get your, more of your HEX through your T-shares. Now, what I'm saying is if you're moving your Ethereum HEX, so this is what I was able to find. Again, there's a lot of other LP pools, so this may not be the whole picture. But if you have a look here, basically what I'm thinking is taking place here is people are moving their Ethereum HEX, say a stake ends, and you're sick of Ethereum fees, and Pulse chain exists, it's out, and you want to migrate, merge, you want to stop using Ethereum, and you're sick of the DEXs on Ethereum. You can slowly, slice by slice, remove your tokens off of Ethereum, stop messing around with JP Morgan spies and Infura's spies, and you could move your stuff over to Pulse chain, You can, and like I said, but you can move it back. You can run your own node. I can't remember how to change the settings, but yeah, have a look into that. But you can still obviously function on Ethereum and chase your T-shares, that's fine. But what I'm saying is when you are moving your Ethereum EHEX over to Pulse chain, maybe then you have the decision, okay, what is the ratios doing? You have, I think it's about 2/3, so 2 to 3, well, yeah. One Ethereum HEX is getting you about 0.64 Pulse chain HEX. So if you have, $50 worth of that, too bad you can't select the number. I know some DEXs let you put in a numerical USD dollar and automatically fills out the tokens, but that doesn't matter. It must be other exchanges. So say you have close enough, like 7,000 Ethereum HEX, right? And then you've brought it over from Ethereum. Then I'm wondering, if you're on Pulse chain now, you've moved away from the DEXs, you paid your gas fees. If you are looking to trade, say you have liquid, why do you have liquid at this point in time on Ethereum? What is the purpose? I mean, I guess you could say the same with Pulse chain. You could say also, you don't want to lock your stuff away, but if you have a lot of liquid, why would you be sitting on a liquid on Ethereum especially? I'm most curious. Now, maybe you want to sell later on, maybe you want to sell with shitty fees, I don't know. But if you were going to sell it slice by slice, wouldn't you want to move it over with a small gas fee, one off, or however one feels comfortable? Wouldn't you want to move it, And once you do move it, you pay your gas fee for the 1 move or 2 move or 3, whatever. If it's a huge number, I can understand people be uncomfortable, whatever. But once it's over on Pulse Chain, you can then move it around at will, interchange it with ratio, trade it with potentially, you know, Pulse Chain hex. And then you can decide, you know, if you're going to sell it slice by slice, maybe you eat less fees. How about that? But keeping that in mind, so it gets, to me, it's getting really complex, but it might be more simple. I might be making it too hard with my explaining, you know. I have a tendency to do that. But if you look at, now, we looked at the V3 on a DEX, Ethereum. We saw some about, you know, with this LP, about 4 sales took place, and it might not tell the whole story because maybe it was routed, but those 4 seemed to, you know, drop the price down a little bit within that LP pool. Simultaneously, though, we did also see people potentially moving their Ethereum HEX over to HEX on Pulse Chain, on PulseX, you know, one of the better, you know, if not the best DEX on Pulse Chain. There are others, and maybe they're routing as well, but not the point of this video. Just imagine this is the only one in existence. What are we seeing? We're seeing people swapping the EHEX for HEX, and apparently it's like that's drawing down the price, but it seems to be drawing it down at a lower rate. So what do I mean by that? If you compare it, it's hard to say one for one, but for instance, you know, in this analysis, now just think, imagine Larry Fink and his boys getting paid to do this and having a look at all these LPs and understanding what every single transaction does and the outcome. So if you think I think it's Albert Einstein is saying similar, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, if you know, sell on one side, on the other side there's a buy. Vice versa, the opposite is true. So what are we seeing? So we're seeing a sell, and then it gets more and more complex because the LPs are intertwined, and also the chains are now intertwined, and there's a bridge. And then you can go over onto the Pulse Chain bridge chain itself, and you can see here smaller cells on Ethereum move the price down, yes. Larger amounts of cells apparently move the price down a little bit less overall on the DEX, which is native to Pulse Chain, PulseX, right? So you're seeing here, what's that? You know, add these totals up, and you know, they're apparent. It seems to be a little. It's not even really selling. In essence, it's swapping, but it has I guess the net effect of a sell, because it must be the Ethereum HEX must be bound, tied, tethered to the actual HEX price on Ethereum chain. Like, that makes sense, right? So because that is taking place when and this is my analysis for today, when the sells are taking place, so people are selling out of EHEX into HEX on Pulse Chain, maybe that's having, you know, like the pulling down effect of the price as it's being traded across. And it's just really fascinating to see. And like I said, you tie that in to people chasing T-shares. You tie that into very large players and sitting on amounts of liquid. The question remains, what it is that larger accounts with lots of, you know, liquid HEX on Ethereum could do. They could, in essence, bring it over to the Pulse Chain side and maybe, you know, provide LP, or maybe there's going to be a system to provide LP. You can get some fees, and then you can see how it's all going to play out in terms of, sorry, that didn't make much sense, but once you're providing liquidity, you know, it's doing something, but as opposed to it just sitting there. But then you can also see, if you go back to Pulse Exchange, say you want to ratio trade, you could keep track of, okay, you have X amount of Ethereum HEX. Maybe your goal is to get more Ethereum HEX. Maybe your goal is to get more Pulse Chain HEX. Maybe your goal is to obtain the maximum amount of T-shares with the same amount of capital. And which one is better? You know, there's lots of different games you can play. Everyone used to say early on, you know, there's the staking game, the time locking game, the best game, one of the only games where I don't see how many people can actually lose except for emergency unstaking. So that's through their own lack of knowledge. But then there's the trading game if you want to, and then if you want to do that, there's all these tools in place. You can have a look at what you're doing. Maybe your goal is to, like I said, obtain maximum T shares on any particular chain. Maybe it's to obtain maximum HEX on any particular chains. I don't know what people are trying to do, but what I can see is it's like a war between chains, kind of. It's like a war between chains and a war between LP. And what you're seeing is, excuse me, people selling on Ethereum versus bridging over and then playing on the Pulse chain side. And I'm curious, ever so curious, if people were to ever, absolutely just abandon Ethereum dexes, like I said, although you still have to pay that gas fee when you enter or entry, you're exiting or entering the system. But if you're purely using HEX, not for the trading game on Ethereum, but for the trading game on Pulse chain, right? Or other tokens for that matter, you may be better off because the fees are cheaper. There's no fees for trading on the Pulse X DEX, unlike, Uniswap turned theirs on. Uniswap is disabling tokens around the world one by one slowly, and Pulse X is not doing that, There's no reason for HEX to be an unsupported asset on Uniswap as far as I'm concerned. Now, that's a lot. I hope that made some sense. But yeah, it's just really interesting to see. Basically, I'm saying I've come back, I've checked the price of HEX. It's like, oh, what's it doing? It's not like up 20%. Everything is sort of stagnating. And what I was able to find with just 2 limited LPs was this here. We've seen some small selling, like a buy just came through, like literally then. What did that do on the price? It had a small effect, like 30. You see what I mean? Like very small numbers with very low prices have and move it. For every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. Now we saw here about 4 small sells, push the price down a little bit. Whereas if people are moving, so when you have Ethereum, right, HEX, and instead of selling it on through a DEX here, if you're bridging it over, what is that doing? It's essentially locking up that Ethereum, right? The liquid Ethereum. If you're not staking it as well, it's like taking it out of the circulating supply, so it becomes more rare. And as things become more rare, more scarce, if people are buying, if there is liquidity, then the price can go up, as we saw with the sacrifice phases, because everyone went nuts, And it became apparent that, people wanted lots of sacrifice points. But anyway, that's another story. Where was I? So, then people, if you're not selling your Ethereum HEX, but you're bridging it out of the Ethereum system. You're bridging it over, bringing it into the Pulse chain. You could pair it up with the other token you're already assuming you got it for free, and then you can play with it over on the Pulse chain side for cheaper fees. You can ratio trade the two across other multiple assets. So you can ratio trade with bridged in stables. You can ratio trade with everything that's been bridged in and has LP pools on Pulse chain, and then you're not copying these massive amounts of Ethereum fees constantly for LP providing, adding, removing, etc., etc. And you appear to be doing less, not damage, but it appears as if you're selling. Now I could be wrong, because I might make another stream follow up going, no, I was wrong. But if you're selling, like for instance, this is a good example here, like $3,000 worth of EHEX, and you're swapping it for, you're selling it, and then you're getting, the HEX on Pulse chain. Then, if you wanted to, well, you could sell it, and then potentially that would have another effect, But yeah, that's, I guess, what I'm trying to get at. You could also lock it away. I guess then looking at that, you'd have to see what effect the price would have on selling. So as you can see, midstream, I've just gone, fuck, I've broken my own mind. But yeah, it's just some interesting stuff to see. Like a buy here is doing what to the price, HEX price that is. It's not moving as much. And so imagine if you bought that same amount over on this LP here, it would most likely increase the price a lot. But then what is the goal? Was all of this, what caused this movement is what I'm trying to get to, trying to understand. And that is about it, because then the next thing would be, you could then say, well, what would people be exiting into? Would they be using the stables like Coast? I'm half tempted to see that, because that's one extra entry point I would imagine. Would they be selling through an exchange, but less exchanges are listing posts? So I'll have a brief look at if we look at, what would it be, what, Pulse HEX? It's probably a good pair to look at. Pulse chain will be insane. Okay, so imagine you're selling Pulse, right? And then people could be selling. See, ideally, my thoughts are selling with as small amount of fees as possible. So something like, if you could sell Pulse directly to fiat somewhere, I don't know if you can. If you could sell, Pulse chain tokens directly to fiat, and if you can, that would be ideal, because then you could just basically almost bypass the Ethereum chain completely, unless you want to engage with getting your T-shares through HEX. And HEX, because it does live on Ethereum and does live on Pulse chain, you can do that. And there's more liquidity than on the other ghost chains, which you don't know, they could come back. What else? So we're seeing here, buy of HEX, sell of HEX. What is that doing to the price? Okay. Interesting. Right, I'll leave it at that. I'll let the experts deal with it, because you guys probably know a lot more than me. I'm just some random dude on the internet who has an interest in cryptocurrency, who notices some things. And what I'm noticing now is very interesting. How the price has just sort of stagnated out. It's very interesting. Like, what will happen next? Who knows? Stay tuned. Free speech. Sign